This is the Zowie EC2-CW, and I like it. Zowie reached out to me a couple of weeks ago and asked if I'd be interested in checking out the Zowie EC2-CW, to which I, of course, said yes. I've been involved in esports for a very long time. I've seen Zowie mice around the place quite a lot, but I've never actually used one myself, so I thought I'd give it a try. Now, if you're wondering what kind of a review this is going to be, I am not a professional player, nor am I trying to be a professional player, and I'm also not a tech expert or a tech reviewer or anything like that. This is an opinionated review, simply coming from the perspective of someone who's been involved in esports and is an esports caster who's been working for the last 10 years. So that's my background. That's the perspective that you're going to be getting here. Simply my opinion and nothing else. One thing to bear in mind before you watch the rest of this review, of course, is that Zowie did send me the mouse for free and they have said I can keep it, but I am not being paid for this review. So here's the deal. This is obviously the Zowie EC2-CW, which is the mouse that I've been using for the last couple of weeks. And my regular go-to mouse over the last couple of years has been the Superlight, just in case anyone's interested to know whether or not maybe that's a comparison that they're also considering, that they're thinking about. That's the mouse that I've been using. I've been really happy with it. I have no complaints at all. And, you know, obviously here for the review is the Zowie EC2-CW, which I did take overseas as well. So if you're maybe someone that travels a lot, works, you know, on the go, something like that, that is something that I had no problems with. It was actually really easy. Just plug and go. No concerns about that one at all. Took it all the way to Vietnam with me for an event over the last couple of weeks and yeah, had no issues. So that's a tick already in the book for me. So the first thing that I noticed with the mouse is that it's got this non-uniform shape, as you can kind of see right there. It's got a bit of a slope to it, which I thought was going to be maybe a bit of an issue for me. I wasn't too sure how my hand would like the slope that the EC2-CW has, but I do have to say that I honestly didn't really notice it all that much, which I would have to say is probably a good sign, and a sign that they've kind of done something right with the mouse. As far as I know, it's also the same shape as what the Zowie EC2 is, which is the wired version of this mouse, and it's also one of the most popular mice of all time. So I guess that makes sense that they've been able to port that across, and it's not a big concern at all. The only thing I'll say is that I do have a palm grip. As you can see, that's kind of how I hold the mouse. So that's something to kind of keep in mind. Maybe if you're a claw grip or any other kind of setup, then, you know, maybe check someone who's got the same grip as you. But for me, as someone that plays with the palm grip, I think it was totally fine and I had no issue with it. Now, one of the big selling points of this mouse in comparison to others in its class and price range is this, which is the enhanced receiver. Now, Zowie says that this one does give you enhanced receiver quality, and I'll put some of their content on the screen that you can have a look at and make that decision for yourself. I'm not the kind of person that gets super hung up on the specs or the latest and greatest technology. So for me, if it works, it works. And that's kind of what I'm worried about as someone who's not a professional player. For what it is worth, though, I really do like this dock, and if it did get me a better signal range or better performance or anything like that, then more to the good as far as I'm concerned. And apparently it's also really useful at a LAN event where, for example, there's a lot of wireless devices going around. It makes sense to me that it's something, you know, that you could potentially be looking at if you're someone that expects to be in those kinds of environments. So I can't realistically test it. I can't really say whether or not it is better or worse than any of the other receivers that I've ever used in my time, but I'll have to take their word for it. And I'm sure if you really do want to go digging a little bit deeper, there are other people who would have tested out this technology and they'll be able to tell you for themselves. Honestly, the single biggest benefit for me, at least as far as the receiver was concerned, is the dock. I just really love the charging system, and I found that to be the single biggest positive change when using this mouse in comparison to my old one. It's not really a big thing. It's definitely a small issue, but having to unplug your receiver to charge your mouse once every few weeks did get a little bit annoying, and I would find myself a lot of times actually forgetting to charge the mouse, and I would get a notification and I'd be thinking, okay, now I'm using the mouse, I have to plug it in, and, you know, it gets a little bit annoying doing that. So this was a much better system. I really enjoyed having that dock in front of my mouse pad that you can just sort of sit the mouse on, no problems at all. And every night before you go to bed, you can charge it and you don't really have to think about it. So that was really a big positive as far as I was concerned, having it always full charge and ready to go. The one issue, obviously, is that I can't now comment on the battery life because I never found myself in a situation where I had to use this mouse to failure. So I thought that was huge. I really, really enjoyed that. Big props from me. Also, there is your standard receiver. So if that's more your style, for whatever reason, you don't want to use the enhanced receiver, maybe you don't have room on your desk or anything like that, you do get the standard receiver just like you do with any other mouse. So if that's more your style, then yeah, they've got you covered there too. Also, the EC2-CW does have a DPI switch on the bottom of the mouse, as you can see here. It's not really a big deal because usually you set and forget. You just, you know, set your DPI and you kind of don't change it for the rest of the time you're using that mouse. But I found it useful, especially when I was traveling. I didn't have to download any software software to change my DPI or anything like that. So I like that. The other switch on the other side here is a polling rate switch, which I personally have never even heard of until this point, so I had to look that up. But apparently 1000 is the best, so I put it on that and I rolled with that. One thing to note with the EC2-CW is that it is a little bit heavier than your average mouse these days. According to the official figures, it's 79 grams. I weighed it on my kitchen scale yesterday and it said 78 grams. When you compare that to the Superlight, it's about 63 grams. And look, personally, I don't notice that much of a difference, but when I'm putting them side by side and picking them up, I can definitely feel that there's a little bit more weight involved with the EC2-CW, and that is also taking into account that I have the Super Glides on the bottom of the Superlight, which would add a little bit more weight because they are made of glass. That said, you know, as someone who, again, is not a professional player and is not looking for the 1% or the 0.1% or anything like that, I don't find that it makes a huge difference personally in my gameplay. I'm pretty average in general, so I just don't think that the weight of the mouse is really going to make that much difference to me. The one thing that I did notice was that it drags a little bit more, maybe. But again, I probably put that down to just having Super Glides on my old mouse. So it's kind of hard to compare unless I had Super Glides on the EC2-CW, which I currently do not. One of the other hangups with the EC2-CW that I've seen in other reviews that people are talking about quite a lot is the sensor. Again, for me personally, I don't find that that really made a difference. Like, I didn't really notice anything. And I think unless you're someone that really is worried about the 1% or is kind of into that nitty gritty, then it probably isn't something that's going to affect your gameplay all that much. In the end, I would say that I do recommend the mouse. I am not sure yet whether or not I'm going to make the full switch over from the Superlight. I'll give it another couple of weeks and then fully decide, but I definitely think it's worth considering. So hope this helped you. Let me know in the comments whether you like the mouse, don't like the mouse, whether you're considering getting it. Maybe I can answer your questions. See you next time.